So in Canada, the government is about to start confiscating its people's firearms. Business to business, door to door. You either give them what they demand, or else. Here is a full episode I made on this disgusting tyranny in horizontal mode. I hope you enjoy it. Nation, welcome to the show. So, if you haven't heard, right now the Canadian government is doing what it does best, confiscating its people's firearms. This time it's under the guise of stopping the next mass shooting, something we all want. So, obviously, they're only taking the guns of people who pose an actual threat to public safety, right? Not exactly. That would make too much sense for them. There, the government has decided that the way to stop mass shootings by mentally ill people is to confiscate guns owned by law-abiding citizens who don't have so much as a parking ticket. Of course, we know that makes no sense. It isn't a solution to anything. None of us actually believe that disarming good people will stop the violently insane. But yet, that is exactly what they will be doing. After a tragic mass shooting in Nova Scotia, a bunch of frightened, coddled, power-hungry politicians who have never even touched a gun labeled anything they chose as an assault weapon, from bird guns to Granddad's old .22. Afraid and ignorant is never a good combination. They sat behind closed doors and labeled 1,500 different types of guns as more dangerous than others, and banned them, not with a law, but with a pen stroke and zero oversight. And now we're here. The government about to kick down the doors of anyone who doesn't give up their guns. They're starting soon by emptying out every mom-and-pop gun store across the nation of the 1,500 different types of evil guns. Every city in every province, everywhere. Comply with our demands or we'll shut you down. That's the threat. After that, they'll be at your front door with a search warrant if you don't deliver your guns to them when they command you to and accept the pittance they offer in return. I don't know about you, but when someone takes something from me with the threat of jail if I resist, it doesn't matter how much they pay me. It's still theft. But it's still possible to resist, right? It's not like the government has a list of every single gun owned by every person, as if they planned this whole thing decades ago. Of course they do. Canada has a mandatory gun registry, just like every thieving regime before it, from Cuba to Soviet Russia, because that's what those lists are for, future confiscation. The Canadian people should have learned from history, because their government certainly did. And in all of this, you have no say. There is no appeal, no clemency for good behavior. Just like a lot of things recently, it's a choice with only one option, and they only ask politely until you say no. This is political theater for a government without a plan. We all see through the lie because we are blessed with common sense, something most politicians lack. And to anyone watching, this has been a long time coming. Guns have always been the favorite punching bag of governments without a plan. And the Liberal Party doesn't just lack a plan, they lack the intelligence to make a plan or even spell the word. It's become a frightened government with no ideas, hoping no one notices its bad management of the nation. It relies on theatrics instead of sound policy. Once you know that, confiscating guns makes a whole lot of sense. The people demanded a solution after the 2020 mass shooting. Instead of dealing with mental health, radicalization, or shattered families, all things that spur lunatic murderers toward what they do, and which are hard to deal with, the government went the easy route of banning guns. But that's not a plan, and will protect no one. I wish there was an easy way to stop these shootings. Everyone does. But all the answers are hard and uncertain, and wasting time on things that don't work only distracts attention and resources from plans that might work. So why would a government do something that doesn't make any sense at all? It's because it does make sense, just not when it comes to stopping mass shootings. Now, let's be radical and believe, just for a moment, that those doing this have brain power that rivals or even exceeds that of an amoeba. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. If that was the case, that means that they know what they're doing won't work. It means they don't care about stopping massacres. They care about disarming the population and are using any catastrophe they can to do so. Now that would make sense. Governments always seem to find a way to benefit from catastrophes. Their plan seems to be a population without arms, regardless of the banner they do it under. And history shows us what sort of governments disarm their populations. Tyrannical ones who are planning something terrible. Something that can only happen when their citizens are weakened to the point that they can be herded like cattle to whatever end the government desires. And if you know anything about the Canadian Liberal Party, a misnomer if there ever was one, it's that where they say they'll stop is always a lie. Does anyone really think that this is where the liberals will stop? The sworn enemies of gun rights and freedom are going to stop at stealing 150,000 legally owned guns. You'd have to be a liberal to believe that. They will keep going until no one has guns but them. That's where arrogant and evil governments always end up. This confiscation isn't part of a grand social protection plan like dental care or a new hospital. The confiscation is the plan, or at least the first step in a much larger plan. What that is, they're not telling us. But we do know one thing. Whatever they're planning requires you to be disarmed and helpless. And there isn't a single time in history that something like that has turned out well for the people being disarmed. I'm Donovan Weiss.